Inappropriate Footwork
And that's
in
not
match
going to be an easy
103.
match, because Ministry of Footwork has been a very strong team.
Elise said, I think it was yesterday, that Ministry are the second best team at running a Tinker. And given that he's obviously going to be biased towards PL for first spot, that is a lot of praise coming from Elise.
So with that, we're going to send you back to the guys in the studio.
Kill the thingy. A thingy just landed. Okay, align to that territorial thingy. Kill the thingy. Snow get thingy. Starburst. Kill the thingies.
So Outbreak barred some holes for no holes barred, and now they're going home. But Outbreak goes on to face the Ministry of Inappropriate Footwork later today. I'm CCP Gargant, joined here by Back and Alien, Elise Randolph, and CCP Rise. What did you guys think about that? That was a dominant display.
We like kind of agreed that it felt a lot like NoHo lost more than Outbreak won. It felt a bit like some weird stuff happened. The first Slipner just evaporating, and I don't know. It was...
Yeah, it was really bizarre. So, I mean, NoHo were forced into shooting the Rattlesnake for Outbreak because they were damped down, they couldn't really project anywhere, so that was an okay decision. But their first Sleipnir died like instantly without repping. The second one seemed to live forever.
Yeah.
And then like I don't know, I think the Kitsune is just made NoHo really, really sad.
Yeah.
Because it got like crucial jams. It seemed to be like at all the perfect times against the NoHo Simi.
I'd be really curious to see the fit on that first Sleipnir. I almost feel like maybe he forgot a module or something. He did. He died so fast. I did see him get one rep cycle off when he was already in structure, but he went from 100 to 10% in 2 seconds.
Well, the thing is, in the tournament, it's so different than in TQ. Like when in TQ, you're like, I'm going to bait a little bit because I don't want to use up too many of my charges. I don't want to overboost. So you wait till you're like pretty low. But in the tournaments, you kind of have to be a little bit aggressive with your repping, I'd say.
You don't overbait all the way to structure, that's for sure. That was
And I think Outbreak deserve a little bit of credit for banning the Gila, because it seems like NoHo really wanted to bring the Gila. This was like their Gila Sleipnir team that they just kind of shoved other things into at the last minute when Gila was banned. At least that's what it seems to me. I don't know.
It looks like it.
Yeah.
And we also saw a Rattlesnake comp being run without the Gila, which
pretty
much worked.
Works really good. The kind of weakness, it seemed like the match was going to swing a bit when they killed one, because it's like a lot of damage focused into just a couple ships. They really didn't have a whole lot of damage in the rest of their setup. So it was a little scary for a second when they lost that first Rattlesnake, because they really lost a lot of damage. But
problem was, by the time that Rattlesnake went down, they were about, I think we were just about down to one Sleipnir at that point.
Yeah,
a
little too far.
If they get that Rattlesnake down before the second Sleipnir dies, I think it does change the match. But
let's bring the results screen up real quick before we go on discussing the next match. So the first Sleipnir that died, it looks like it only took 19,000 damage.
Yeah, and the rest took like 35, 40.
Well, that one took 43. Was probably the second one. I mean, that's really.
And almost none of them got any reps from the Scimitar. There was for a little while some active towards the end, but in general they didn't really take any. So that is pretty strange. I wonder what the deal is.
I mean, to put that Sleipnir in kind of perspective, one of the Vexers took almost 16,000 damage. I mean, 19,000. It's really, wow.
I just want to echo also what Elise is saying. I think the Kitsune is really, really strong. If they don't have that ship, I think this match looks a lot different. It's really powerful with the damps, so the scan res damps. The Scimitar not only was getting jammed, but taking forever to relock. And I think that was really, really important. It's a pretty nice ship to just squeeze one of in there for that exact purpose. And this isn't the first time today, actually, we've seen an ECM ship play a really big role, kind of on its own. There was a Blackbird earlier that had a very similar effect, where it was jamming key ships throughout like the entire match, and really, really made a big difference.
I think the other thing to point out there is the almost 100,000 damage that Rattlesnake took. I mean, you got to credit No Holds Barred. Their team put out a lot of damage because
Yeah.
it doesn't seem. I mean, it did tank for a long time, but it didn't feel like it tanked any longer than that second Sleipnir did. But it took almost more than twice as much damage. So I think this is kind of bad luck for Noho to run into a double rattlesnake kind of vulture comp like this, because at the end of the day, if they run into a flimsier comp, they run into something with smaller ships, maybe they do get the advantage early, but their overwhelming damage they had, maybe they do blast through something else to get DPS off the field faster, and their scimitar is able to keep up.
Yeah, and like we said, with this, No Holds Barred goes home, and we move on to the next match, which is Agony Empire versus Triumvirate Dot. Agony banned out the Gila and the Getten, while banned out the Vexor Navy issue and the Rattlesnake.
Oh, that's actually a really interesting ban from Tri. They're trying to take two teams out with the bans. A lot of times you see teams saying, I just don't want to see any armor, I don't want to see any tinker. But Tri is trying to just take away a broad amount of setups with what they've taken away.
Yeah, it's cool seeing more and more kind of like anchor drone ships banned. So good chance of seeing something else again. It was fun last match to see a Sleipnir focus and a Rattlesnake focus, which are both been a little less common today. Maybe this match we'll see again, like no Helas, no VNIs, maybe some new stuff.
The meta has really been favoring like a lot of cruisers. So like when you see the two core things, it's quite bizarre. But I mean, Agony versus Tri, this is like I think probably the best match in the losers bracket by like the quality of teams.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, I think Shadow Cartel is one of the better teams in the losers bracket, but most everyone else agrees that Tri and Agony are 1 and 2 in the elimination bracket. So this is going to be like juggernauts going at it.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting. They're fighting for the right to play against Gorgon Empire later, who put on a pretty good show against Pandemic Legion yesterday. But so tough road for either one of them. But yeah, I don't know. I like Agony. That's who I have circled before we get predictions. But
I have Agony underlined as well, but I think they're going to take it.
Yeah, Tri got really unlucky. They had to face Hydra in the first match, so they had to be in the elimination bracket for the entire tournament, more or less.
Yep.
So I think Agony are going to be a little bit fresher, have a few more setups in their pocket that they can throw out, and Agony will probably barely take it.
I actually have Tri circled.
Don't swap this time.
You're the rebel of the desk.
I'm not going to swap. Most people probably know, but I feel like I should mention, since I felt silly when I noticed it yesterday, this Tri team has a lot of the Verge of Collapse team on it that won the tournament, so there's a lot of very experienced tournament pilots on the team, and I'm going to go with them.
Experience has been very important in these earlier matches that we've seen, and some others would say that it separates the great team from the good teams. I mean, having that sort of experience on your team will help, but Agony Empire is they're no greenies.
They're not. They're not new to the tournament. They've been doing well for a couple years in a row now, so they have a lot of experience themselves. They just haven't had quite the same results. I mean, Verge won, and that's really good. Agony got pretty far last year, though. They lost in semis or something.
Yeah, the only teams Agony lost to were PL, basically.
Right.
PL and Hydra, I think, were the only two teams Agony lost to,
Yeah.
and they lost to PL twice. So having to run across PL twice is kind of a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
PL eventually won the last tournament,
Right.
so...
you know, it's worth mentioning both of these teams it's almost a throwback match. I mean, both of these teams, at least the Alliance has been around forever. I remember Triumvirate all the way back in my first tournament, Alliance Tournament 4. I don't know when Agony started fighting in the tournament, but they were definitely around back then. They were running PvP classes. You could take an Agony class to learn how to do scouting, learn how to fly frigates and such. So both of these teams go back as far as I do in 2006 at the very least. So
Yeah, Tri has many different incarnations of itself, but they
that's
have
true.
been
It's
around.
like Tri Mark III or something.
Yeah,
but
we might be at like 7 or 8 now.
Let's see if Triumph Mark III can bring it home, or if Agony is going to make us all happy, except for CCP Rise.
With day 4, that means that pretty much only the good teams and Test Alliance are left.
Test Alliance, please ignore. Worst of the best.
Delicious spaghetti you eat while waiting for a prey to put its shiny pot into history. So you always let jump, and let the bodies hit the floor, and that is how the glue comes.
Welcome back, everyone, to one of the most anticipated matches of the day. This is Agony Empire versus Triumvirate in the 12th Alliance Tournament. I'm CCB Fozzie, joined by Apothony, and we have two really awesome setups, including, on your screen right now, a flagship. That is Triumvirate's flagship Rattlesnake.
The Flagglesnake.
It does have cruise missiles fit, so it has potential for a ton of damage, potential for smart bombs and nukes that are more powerful than normal ships can fit in the tournament. That is a ship that is probably worth a whole lot of ISK and going to be very powerful in this fight. Agony has brought a triple Eos, double Stratios to dodge the Vexor Navy ban, triple Vexor, Mollis, Tristan, and then double Navitas for reps. Lots and lots of damage with drones.
Tri have, as you say, got the Flagglesnake. They got two Eos, a Simi, Kerry's Vexor, triple Heretic, which is going to make those Navitas burn. We got two Mollis with Damps, and then a Crow to round off the team.
Both teams came in at max range, 50 kilometers from opposite beacons, so they're 100 kilometers away from each other at the beginning of the match, and immediately lots of Damps across from Triumvirate onto the Agony team. That is the Mollises, mainly from Triumvirate, getting Damps across the field, and they've won that initial Damp war.
Looks like 3 of the Tri teams are bringing it in close, trying to figure out what they are. It looks like they are, in fact, the Heretics, trying to get in close enough to apply their light missiles, the rest of the team staying back. Looks like they're dropping their drones. Let's see what drone choice they've got from the Tri team. It looks like they've all dropped light shield maintenance drones combined with geckos for DPS.
Meanwhile, Agony has dropped Praetors and geckos as well. Geckos, of course, really effectively using the 100 megabits of bandwidth from the Stratios, and they're going across the field.
Already, one of the Tri Heretics taking a ton of damage. They want those Navitas sake. Heretics can volley through Navitas with such ease. They've got to get them off field.
Starfleet Commanders, Scimitar doing a great job of keeping the Heretic alive. These Heretics went out to the front to try to get underneath the Damps and get a hold of these Mollises and potentially the Navitases, but that made them vulnerable. But he's keeping them alive really effectively.
See, Reverend Elicon going nearly 4k in his Mollis, trying to get away from the incoming damage. Looks like he's pulling back quite nicely. Damps spread really well across the Agony Empire team. They're having a really tough time, but they are using a drone setup, so they can just switch their assigns around, keep that drone damage going, although it's another thing to manage.
So we now have drones crossing the field from Triumvirate. I'm going to see who they're going for. It looks like they're going to be heading for the Eos, potentially. Let's see where the damage... Yep, there you go. The Eos of Eomar there, taking damage from the drones of Triumvirate. Dropping their shield fast, but he is going to be armor tanked with the Navitas in support, and there you go. They do have reps on him, so good work by the Navitases. We'll see how well their reps can hold up against all this damage.
Yep, looks like the Vexor of Silas is now target paint as well. He looks like the next damage primary. They might be switching, going on to the Eos, getting reps, and then switching off. But one of the things about the small reppers is they cycle very quickly, so it's very easy to switch the targets you are repping.
Importantly, and somewhat confusingly, War God's Rattlesnake is moving around here, but it hasn't sent its drones out yet. It still has his drone contingent, still just orbiting him, not doing anything. He's just sitting there chilling. He basically, I guess, Triumvirate decided they don't want to use their
Vexor goes down. Fight. First blood, loss to Agony Empire. Tri still keeping that Heretic up at health. That's a decent chunk of their DPS and potentially a few Damps as well, because the Vexor does have 4 mids. It does have some great utility.
As I said that, of course, War God has now sent his drones into the fray. And for a flagship Rattlesnake, those drones are going to be doing a ton of damage. So expect the damage on Agony to pick up very quickly.
Absolutely. We've got, looks like, the second Vexor of Kekati going down now. Vexors, I mean, they really don't tank all that well. They haven't got a huge amount of lows. They're T1 cruiser hulls. I mean, they're very easy to kill. They're a great primary choice. It looks like a Stratios of Ikovian is next.
Yeah, and of course, with plates on them, as you'd expect, they're not going to be able to very easily outrun the drone damage, which is something we've been seeing Helas do throughout this match, or throughout this tournament. At the moment, Tri is definitely in the driver's seat. They have to be very happy with this start. They're knocking down the Stratios, even through its resist bonus tank. Stratios, of course, tank very well for a Tech 1, for a faction
with
cruiser.
A web and a paint, you know, the cruise missiles of the Rattlesnake, all those drones, they're going to be applying DPS pretty much perfectly to that Stratios. So despite the extra fitting space it gets over the Vexor Navy, despite the resist tank, it is going to drop.
So we've seen a lot of the teams that people expected to be top tier contenders in this tournament bring out the Rattlesnake flagship. I think we'll leave it to Elise, who is part of a team that also chose the Rattlesnake flagship, to talk a little bit about that when we send it back to him later. But it's notable that Tri decided that this is the moment to bring it out. Against Agony, back against the wall, they knew they needed something really great. This is actually
holding on in structure for a surprising amount of time. Looks like they've switched DPS to the Navitas of Alistone. Probably just finished taking off the field. There he goes at last. Looks like got him a Navitas. Both of them are neuted. Frigates do not have a huge amount of capacitor bait, so, you know, one decent newt cycle and they are out of cap.
Yes, yeah. These guys are got to be feeling the pain from these newts as, there we go, first Navitus drops. And of course, the fact that their tank relies on repping each other means that once one goes down, you usually see the second drop very quickly. And there he goes. He's taking a bunch of damage, and he's not going to be able to get reps, so Oliegeist in his Navitus is going to drop off the field in just moments. There he goes.
I have to say, Tri are looking like a super strong team in this matchup.
They are
Agony
indeed.
are no joke when it comes to the AT. They're long in history, as we were saying before.
And Agony is
so
doing
well.
what they need to do now. They're hitting the Scimitar for Triumvirate. They've got the Scimitar down to about half shields quite quickly. They, of course, are very far behind in this match. It's going to be almost impossible for them to win it, but if they do want to have any hope at all, killing that Scimitar is the way to do it. They need to get him off the field, then clear the small ships, and then get to work on the big ones.
Yeah, it looks like Starfleet Commander is holding Happy in half shields. I don't think he will drop. They've already lost so much DPS. They've lost 2 of their Vexes. They've lost Australios. That's, let's see, so much bandwidth. I can't do the maths in my head quickly enough.
It's a lot of damage, and the Scimitar of Starfleet Commander is delaying his death quite a bit by using speed. It's a tactic we've seen a lot of good pilots use.
Vexer and final Vexer dropping, and the Tristan now just barely holding on in a sliver of structure.
It's just going to be another volley from the Heretics before he goes down. These Heretics, of course, are doing a great job of killing frigates, as we've seen from a lot of great teams. Yep, so that is the reps off the field for Triumvirate, but it is too little too late. At this point, it's just a mop-up. Agony is probably going to take some more ships with him. They can very easily kill now these Molluses and the Heretics if they get the drones from the Eos and the Stratios on them, but it's not going to be enough to win. They need to be able to kill these Eoses and Rattlesnake, and a faction-fit Rattlesnake is not going to be an easy target.
Looks like DPS is now on Zamo of Agni Empire team. I mean, they spent so much time shooting at and failing to kill, you know, the Heretic, the Maulus. Had they gone for that Simi straight away, if they managed to get their DPS on it, I mean, this match could have entirely gone the other way.
I just think they couldn't get their DPS on it. The Scimitar was staying pretty far away from the fight. He was doing a good job of staying at the back. When they pounced on the Heretics because the Heretics were up front. And it's a fine choice, because as you saw, a Heretic almost died. It wasn't as if they had the option, I think, of just switching between one or the other, but they did get to him eventually. Excellent piloting from Starfleet Commander kept him alive for much of the match. As actually, excellent piloting as well from the Navitus for Agony. They also didn't die until much later. And of course, now Eos dropped off the field for Agony. The Agony damage is being applied to Ugly Eric's Triumvirate Eos, but it's only, again, a matter of time. Stratios is the next primary. We've got Webs and Painters on him, and he's taking the brunt of the damage from Tri.
Yeah, it looks like the final Stratios will be dropping for the Agony Empire team. As you said, we are in mop-up mode at the moment. They're going to try and take another Eos with him, dropping quite quickly. I would expect, well, apparently not, an AAR on him, maybe not. So it looks like Ugly Eric will be dropping down into structure.
There's a good chance that, he's going to die, and that's not going to be something that's going to pay in.
They've already lost. That's going to be a nice pickup. You know, they're going down fighting. I really respect that attitude from Agony. They're not just kind of running around the edge of the arena trying to stay alive as long as possible. They're trying to drag as many Tri guys down with them as possible.
And Agony, this is a super strong team. Of course, this is the team that has the record for the fastest win in this tournament so far in their last match. It's really a bit disappointing, I'm sure, for them to see this be the end of their run, but they, of course, are going to be back in future tournaments. These are two teams that we can expect that the pilots in them are going to be back time after time. And Triumvirate, on the other hand, is off to fight Gorgon Empire now.
Yes,
so that's not going to be an easy fight.
That's going to be an insane. Gorgon, as we've been saying, have absorbed the old dark side team, which I feel we keep saying that and it feels a bit mean. I'm sure Gorgon have really fantastic AT pilots as well. It's just dark side are also really good, so we do tend to bring that
and
up.
have a lot of tournament pedigree. Yes, the team from Gorgon has performed quite well. It's another team that has just gotten knocked into the losers bracket by fighting the defending champions PL. So that'll be another great fight, and that's coming up later today. But in the meantime, that Eos is dropping through structure, just another couple of volleys away. And as we see that flagship Rattlesnake that I'm sure we'll see coming back later in this tournament, because that is a very powerful vessel. That is the end of the match for Agony Empire. Triumvirate moves through, and we'll send you back to the guys in the commentary area.
In Eve, the only thing worth more than ISK is trust. This October 4th in Amsterdam, Eve is real.
And now we are covered in the smug fog of CCP Rise, as agony inflicting agony on us, making our sheets contain a lot of X's. They go home. Triumvirate face the Gorgon Empire later today, like CCP Fuzzy said. Was this a surprise? This was a surprise for me, I must say.
I don't know.
I thought Agony had it.
Tri's a good team. Agony is also a good team. So it's one of these coin flip situations. And like we said, Tri got into the losers bracket only because they lost to Hydra. And so I figured maybe they'd spent a lot of their good setups trying to manage through the losers bracket. But nope. They just had a setup that they pulled from their back pocket. And I think we should talk about the bans, because I think the bans are actually pretty ingenious by Tri. They banned the Rattlesnake, and then they took their own flagship Rattlesnake. Now, a popular meta is a lot of cruisers, but the other one we've seen a lot of is just these 2 cores with a bunch of support. And the only good ship in that 2-core lineup, I think, and obviously Tri think, are a Rattlesnake. So they eliminated the 2-core setup and forced a lot of cruisers. But then they banned the Navy Vexor, which they know Agony probably likes. The Navy Vexor compared to the Stratios, Navy Vexor is way faster, and the drones are faster. And the Tri support wing wasn't nearly as fast as other support wings could be. They had a lot of heretics and molluses and things like that. So they forced Agony into taking a team that they wanted to take, but like a crummier version of it, and one that Tri knew they could deal with. And they absolutely did.
Well, and you mentioned the support, you know, they won the support war, I mean, right off the bat.
Yeah.
And then that kind of dictated the rest of the match. It allowed them to play it as they wanted to, and by winning that support war early and holding on to the support war lead, they just kind of dominated it. You know, applying your control bar really gives you control over the match, quite literally. You can dictate ranges, you can dictate when you're going to engage, who you're going to engage, how you're going to engage, and Triumvirate did that brilliantly.
And they dealt with the Frigga logistics really well in a way that we haven't seen many people do before. They used the molluses to damp the Frigga logistics, the Navitas, forcing the Navitas to kind of get in close and kind of stick together, and they can't kite away and help each other nearly as well. So really clever.
Yeah, and switched around target some as well. They started out shooting something that was able to get reps, but then switched over quickly to a Vexor that was a little far away, starting at Stratios maybe, and then switched across. And the Navitas, of course, need to be at close range because of the damps, and so they had some delay there where they could pick apart the Agony team. It was really well played. It was fun to see the flagship Rattlesnake. Have we seen one of those so far?
We saw one yesterday. It was PL versus Gorgon.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I was kind of thinking it's a little different from a lot of the traditional flagship picks, or at least kind of the more common ones from the past, because often you see Balgorns and Vindicators because you're trying to capitalize on the bonuses, which we see again with the Armageddon this year. Like the range bonus just gets like amplified by bringing officer mods, but the Rattlesnake doesn't have one of those particularly kind of synergistic bonuses with the flagship thing. It just makes the ship way more awesome. It's already really solid, and it's kind of more, I don't know, it seems like more of kind of an all-around performer, which isn't typical for flagships.
And it allows you to do what they just did. You ban out Rattlesnakes and then bring one.
Right,
you know,
right.
That's the other kind of meta thing you can do with your flagship. So.
Let's bring up the result screen just so that we can talk about it a little more.
Yeah, that's true. It's actually kind of similar in a way to Dominic's flagships from last year, because they were just a really, really strong core ship, and it just gets way more awesome, which is what we saw some of the really best teams do last year. Bring, like, Hydra had a flagship dummy. So, yeah, here's the screen.
Yeah, and as far as I was talking about, when you have like a flagship, you have to make a few decisions. Like, do you think the ship is going to be banned a lot and you want to take it, or do you want to pick a ship that scales really well with money?
Right.
So like when you put like really fancy mods on it, does it get better? That's why we see a lot of Geddons and Balgorns, because those ships scale incredibly well when you put more money into them.
That's a nice way to put it.
You know, one thing I'm noticing on the screen right away, if you look at the damage returned numbers on the Agony team, as you'd expect in logistics, you see a big fat 0. But what you would not expect to see is on one of their Vexors, a 0. Meaning, if I understand that right, he did no damage. And I wonder why that is. It was the support ward just won that hard that he was never able to apply damage?
It could be he was I don't really remember the name so well. Maybe he like died really early on before he could like throw his drones on.
But I mean, that's obviously a big deal. The 6 points worth of ship, a cruiser worth of ship that just never did anything. Yeah. So that's kind of something that hurts the Agony Empire group there. I mean, obviously the other Vexors both did at least a couple thousand damage, which isn't a ton, but it's something. Don't know if that would have made a huge difference, but at the same time, that indicates something about the control that Triumvirate had over that match. And there we are. Rise has water.
Yay!
Magic water.
So Moving on, we, as I
hydration.
cross here on my little score sheet,
Don't worry, I'm hydrated.
next match,
Yeah.
that's good. Being
It
hydrated,
is. It's important.
being hydrated during rain is very,
I
very
may have
important.
undervalued it yesterday, but today I had plenty of water.
We learn. We
Yeah.
learn from mistakes.
You're damp.
So, woohoo!
Yeah.
So, we now have a match where Razor returns from winning the first match of the losers bracket today versus
Yeah.
Solar Fleet. So we have Razor versus the Ronin.
Yeah.
Razor banned out the Orthrus and the Worm, and the Ronin banned out Ishtar and the Golem.
Orthrus is an interesting band. It's not one we've seen a ton of bands, spent on.
But we have seen the Orthrus being really effective when
Yes,
used.
this is true.
Yeah, so when I see those bands from Razor, if I'm Ronin, I'm going to be like, okay, they're going to bring a lot of Molluses, a lot of small ships, maybe
even Friglogy.
Maybe even Friglogy, that I just don't want the Orthrus to rip me apart.
But this also leaves open both the Rattlesnake and the Gila.
Yes, yes. So, man, that's going to be pretty crazy. I don't know why Ronin went the way they did. They banned the home and the golem and the what?
Ishtar.
Ishtar.
The Jolem. It's the Jolem.
We generally see those two ships paired together when we see them.
Yes.
I mean, not exclusively, obviously, but when we do see them work really well, they work together, or they work well in tandem, I should say. So I guess they just want to get rid of that one setup. Try with their bands, they eliminated like 5 or 6 different setups, and even complete styles they eliminated. So Ronin going for a more focused ban against Razor. I wonder.
That implies that they have a setup that is extremely weak to that setup.
Yeah, so maybe they've got some damps as well.
As we discussed, also tells Razor a lot about their setup, that Razor can bring something to.
Yeah. So if we're guessing based on damps, I'm going to say Ronin are going to have Celestises, and Razor are going to bring Molluses. That's my guess. I mean, they're probably not going to do either of those, but
put your money where your mouth
if
is.
I'm like, if I'm right, I'm going to look like a genius.
And if you're wrong, you'll just look like a normal commentator on this desk.
Yeah.
There you go. So what are your guys' predictions? I marked the Ronin.
I marked the Ronin as well.
Yeah, I marked the Ronin too, but I'm not really that convinced about it now.
What if
I marked Razor, but when I marked it, I thought it would be Solar, so I'm rooting for Solar still here. First the Ronin.
well, nobody wins for you?
I mean, the Ronin have crazy tournament pedigree, so I mean, and this is Razor's second match of the day, and in a pretty short
That
time.
just means they're warm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really hectic. They had to. No, it's just
that was my rationale, right? We're going into this. Experience is a huge deal. Ronin has tons of it, and fatigue is actually a huge deal. People I saw people laughing in stream chat about pilot fatigue yesterday, but it's actually true. Those matches, you get an adrenaline rush, even if you've flown in 20 of them. So you come down off of that, you've had an adrenaline rush before, you kind of come off a little tired, and then you have to get amped right back up again, like 2 hours later. It's hard. It's tough on these guys.
And it's not all about like double clicking in space, because obviously it's not that hard to do this. But it's like the mental fatigue. That
Right.
you, like,
No, that's exactly.
What am I supposed to shoot? Should I like position my ship over here? Am I going to go out of the arena? That game is hard.